seek nothing outside of yourself. These 5 words form the bedrock of a philosophy that has survived centuries of blood, steel, and social upheaval. They belong to Miyamoto Musashi, a name that resonates not just as a relic of feudal Japan, but as a universal symbol of the ultimate human potential. Musashi was not merely a soldier, he was a phenomenon. To understand his discipline, we must first understand the scale of his achievements. His journey began in the crucible of violence. At the age of 13, a time when most modern children are navigating middle school, Musashi fought his first duel to the death against a seasoned samurai named Arima Kihei. Musashi won. This wasn't a fluke of luck or raw talent. It was the first heartbeat of a life defined by an unbroken string of over 60 duels. He remained undefeated until his death, a record that stands today as one of the most staggering athletic and martial achievements in human history. But if we look at Musashi only as a killer, we miss the man. He was a philosopher, a strategist, a painter, and a calligrapher. He realized early on that the sword was simply a tool to sharpen the mind. He argued that without discipline, a person is like a rudderless ship, drifting aimlessly, tossed about by the chaotic currents of impulse, fleeting desires, and the search for immediate gratification. In this exploration, we are going to dissect the pillars of Musashi's The Way of the Lone Wolf, Dokkodo. We will look at how a man who lived 400 years ago provides the exact blueprint we need to navigate the distractions of the 21st century. Principle 1. Accept everything. Just the way it is, the discipline of radical reality. Musashi's life was a masterclass in uncertainty. As a ronin, a masterless samurai, he didn't have a steady paycheck, a permanent home, or a guaranteed tomorrow. Every duel could be his last. For Musashi, acceptance was not a sign of weakness or giving up. It was a high-level psychological discipline. Most of us live in a state of constant war with reality. When things go wrong, our first instinct is to protest. The modern scenario: imagine you are driving to the most important job interview of your life. Suddenly, smoke pours from the hood. The engine dies. You are stuck on the shoulder of a highway. The undisciplined mind enters a suffering loop. It asks, why me? Why today? This is unfair. This internal screaming doesn't fix the radiator. It only clouds the judgment you need to solve the problem. Musashi teaches us to strip away the labels of good or bad. A situation simply is. The car has stopped. That is the objective reality. A disciplined person acknowledges the broken engine, calls the tow truck, notifies the interviewers, and immediately looks for the next move. By refusing to label the event as a catastrophe, you save the mental energy required to fix it. This mirrors the Stoic wisdom of Epictetus. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. Musashi's discipline was the ability to see the world through a clear lens, undisturbed by the fog of emotional entitlement. Principle 2. Do not regret what you have done. The ghost of the past. There is a vital distinction that Musashi understood, which many of us fail to see: the difference between guilt and regret. Guilt is a functional compass. If you hurt someone's feelings or compromise your ethics, guilt acts as a signal for self-correction. It's a tool for growth. Regret, however, is a mental parasite. It is the act of living in a graveyard of past choices that cannot be changed. For a samurai, regret was a death sentence. If Musashi spent his time agonizing over a strike he missed in a duel 3 years ago, he wouldn't be focused on the blade aimed at his throat now. In our modern lives, we lose thousands of hours to the what-if cycle. What if I hadn't lost that money? What if I hadn't stayed in that relationship? Musashi's discipline demands that we keep the mind fluid. To maintain focus, The mind must be free of clutter. Regret is the ultimate clutter. Whether you've wasted your savings on a bad investment or failed a major exam because you stayed up playing video games, the path of discipline is the same. Acknowledge, learn, and pivot. You are allowed to make mistakes. You are not allowed to let those mistakes become the anchor that keeps you from moving forward. The past is a school, not a prison. Principle 3. Be indifferent to where you live. The internal geography of peace. We often suffer from the geographic fallacy, the belief that if we could just move to a new city, get a better apartment, or live by the beach, our internal chaos would vanish. Musashi spent his life in damp caves, opulent castles, and muddy fields. His conclusion? The location is secondary to the spirit. He lived by the mantra, no matter where you go, there you are. Happiness and discipline are internal states. If you are disorganized, anxious, and undisciplined in a small town, you will eventually be disorganized, anxious, and undisciplined in a penthouse in Tokyo. The honeymoon phase of a new location acts like a drug. It masks the symptoms of a restless mind, but it never cures the disease. Musashi's indifference to his surroundings was a test of his mental resilience. He suggests that if we are truly committed to a path of mastery, we must be able to thrive anywhere. The practical application. Are you waiting for the perfect environment to start working on your goals? Are you waiting for a better desk, a quieter office, or a more inspiring view? Musashi would call this a lack of discipline. The disciplined mind creates its own environment. Whether you are in a crowded subway or a silent library, your inner temple should remain unshakable. Principle 3. Be indifferent to where you live. The internal geography of peace. We often suffer from the geographic fallacy, the belief that if we could just move to a new city, get a better apartment, or live by the beach, our internal chaos would vanish. Musashi spent his life in damp caves, opulent castles, and muddy fields. His conclusion? The location is secondary to the spirit. He lived by the mantra, no matter where you go, there you are. Happiness and discipline are internal states. If you are disorganized, anxious, and undisciplined in a small town, you will eventually be disorganized, anxious, and undisciplined in a penthouse in Tokyo. The honeymoon phase of a new location acts like a drug. It masks the symptoms of a restless mind, but it never cures the disease. Musashi's indifference to his surroundings was a test of his mental resilience. He suggests that if we are truly committed to a path of mastery, we must be able to thrive anywhere. The practical application. Are you waiting for the perfect environment to start working on your goals? Are you waiting for a better desk, a quieter office, or a more inspiring view? Musashi would call this a lack of discipline. The disciplined mind creates its own environment. Whether you are in a crowded subway or a silent library, your inner temple should remain unshakable. Principle 4. To know 10,000 things, know one. Well, the paradox of mastery. In our modern information age, we are suffering from a crisis of depth. We are a generation of dabblers. We have 50 tabs open in our browsers. We start 3 different online courses in a week, and we drop a hobby the moment the new car smell wears off. This is what psychologists call shiny object syndrome. Musashi's life was the antithesis of this. He spent decades perfecting a single thing, the art of the sword. However, if you look at his later life, he was a master of many crafts. How did he bridge that gap? Musashi believed that mastery is a universal language. By dedicating himself with obsessive discipline to the sword, he learned the underlying principles of timing, rhythm, distance, and psychological warfare. He realized that the rhythm of a duel is the same as the rhythm of a painting. The strategy of a one-on-one fight is the same as the strategy of a 10,000-man army. The discipline required to wake up and practice at 4 a.m. is the same discipline required to sit still and write a philosophical treatise. The deep dive method. When you master one difficult skill, whether it's coding, playing the cello, or high-stakes sales, you aren't just learning that skill. You are learning how to learn. You are discovering your own breaking point and how to push past it. Once you have cracked the code of mastery in one field, you can apply that same blueprint to anything else. This is why Musashi said that by knowing the way of the sword, he could see the way in all things. The modern lesson. Stop trying to be okay at 20 things. Pick one thing that scares you, one thing that requires immense discipline, and see it through to the end. Once you have reached the top of that mountain, you will find that the view of all other mountains becomes much clearer. Principle 5. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. The discipline of detachment. As a warrior, Musashi lived in a world where goodbye was often permanent. Friends died in battle, mentors passed away, lovers were left behind as he pursued the life of a wandering swordsman. To the modern ear, never be saddened sounds cold, perhaps even robotic. But Musashi wasn't suggesting we become unfeeling statues. He was warning us against emotional bondage. The two types of separation. People. We lose people to death, distance, or simply the changing seasons of life. If your entire sense of self and your ability to remain disciplined is tied to another person, their departure will destroy you. Musashi argues that your path is yours alone. You can love others, walk with them for a mile, and cherish their company. But you must be able to continue the journey when they turn a different corner. Possessions. This is where Musashi's discipline hits home for us today. We are deeply attached to our stuff, our phones, our cars, our brand name clothes. The litmus test of discipline. If you lost your most expensive possession tomorrow, would you still be you? Or would your spirit break? Musashi practiced internal minimalism. He enjoyed things when he had them, but he never let them own him. True discipline is being able to walk away from anything that holds your spirit hostage. When we stop fearing separation, we become unfreeable. We become warriors who can move through the world without being weighed down by the ghosts of what we used to have. Principle 6. Never be jealous. Killing the green-eyed monster. Why would a legendary swordsman care about jealousy? Because jealousy is the ultimate energy thief. In the 17th century, a samurai might be jealous of another's rank, his fame, or the quality of his steel. Today, we have digital jealousy. We scroll through Instagram and see people who seem to have better bodies, bigger houses, and more perfect lives. Musashi viewed jealousy as a failure of discipline for 3 specific reasons. It's a distraction. In a duel, if you are looking at the crowd's reaction or thinking about how much more famous your opponent is, you are going to get your head cut off. You must be 100% present. Jealousy forces you to live in someone else's life instead of your own. It's based on a lie. Jealousy assumes someone else's path is easier or better. You see the result, the trophy, but you don't see the thousands of hours of bloody practice Musashi put in. It weakens the will. Jealousy breeds resentment, and resentment makes you a victim. A disciplined person cannot be a victim. Musashi's remedy was simple: total internal validation. He didn't compare himself to other swordsmen to see if he was better. He compared himself to who he was yesterday. If you are focused on honing your own blade, on becoming the greatest samurai in your own career or family, you simply don't have the time or the emotional bandwidth to worry about what the person in the next lane is doing. Principle 7. Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age. the freedom of the present moment. This principle is perhaps the hardest for us to grasp in a world built on retirement funds and accumulation. Musashi was cautioning against the trap of security. He observed that many warriors started their lives with fire and discipline, but as they gained wealth and land, fiefs, they became soft. They spent more time protecting what they had than growing who they were. They traded their edge for comfort. Musashi teaches us that the moment you become obsessed with security, you stop taking the risks necessary for greatness. Discipline is a muscle that must be worked every day. If you retire your discipline, it withers. While we must be practical about our futures, Musashi's spirit reminds us, don't let your possessions define your safety. Your only true security is your skill, your mind, and your ability to endure. Principle 9. Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the men of old. Seek what they sought, the discipline of originality. This is perhaps Musashi's most radical teaching. He was a student of history, yet he warned against being a copycat. He saw many swordsmen who spent their lives mimicking the exact footwork and stances of dead masters, but they lacked the spirit of the master. The trap of tradition. We see this today in every industry. We try to copy a billionaire's morning routine or use the exact same software as a successful creator. But Musashi argues that the tools and routines are just the surface. You must seek the principle, not the procedure. Don't just wake up at 5 a.m. because Musashi did. Wake up early because you seek the quiet focus required for deep work. Don't just use a specific strategy because it's the industry standard. Use it only if it serves your specific reality. Musashi's discipline was an adaptive discipline. He famously fought with 2 swords, Niten Ichi Ryu, when the tradition was to use one. Why? Because it worked. He wasn't afraid to break the rules of the past to find the truth of the present. Principle 10. The way of the void. Mastery beyond technique. In the final chapter of his writings, Musashi speaks of the void, kuo. This is the state where discipline becomes so ingrained that it requires no conscious thought. It is what modern psychologists call the flow state. When you first learn a skill, be it driving a car or coding, you are clumsy. You have to think about every movement. But through thousands of hours of disciplined repetition, the skill moves from your conscious mind into your bones. Musashi lived in the void. He didn't think about his sword. He was the sword. By knowing things that exist, you can know that which doesn't exist. This is the ultimate goal of self-discipline. To reach a point where you no longer have to try to be disciplined. You don't have to try to go to the gym, you just go. You don't have to struggle to avoid distractions, you simply don't see them. You have cleared the clutter of your mind so thoroughly that only the task remains. 1. The morning duel. Musashi believed the first moments of an encounter decided the outcome. Your morning is your first encounter with the day. The discipline. Do not check your notifications. The moment you look at your phone, you are seeking something outside of yourself. You are reacting to the world's demands. The strike. Spend the first hour in the way. Work on your one thing. Before the world can distract you, win your first duel of the day against your own laziness. 2. Radical acceptance training. When something goes wrong today, a rude comment from a boss, a spilled coffee, a missed flight, pause. The discipline. Use Musashi's gaze. Look at the event without labeling it. Say to yourself, the coffee is on the floor. That is the reality. The strike. Clean it up and move on. Notice how much energy you save by not getting angry. 3. The audit of attachment. Once a month, look at your life and ask, what owns me? The discipline. If there is a habit, a social media app, or a luxury item you feel you cannot live without, Musashi would say you are in emotional bondage. The strike. Practice a period of separation. Delete the app for a week. Walk away from the luxury. Prove to yourself that your spirit is independent of your possessions. 4. The mastery of one. Stop the shiny object syndrome in its tracks. The discipline. Commit to one hard path for 90 days. No pivots, no new courses. The strike. By the end of those 90 days, you will have seen the patterns that Musashi spoke of. You will realize that the discipline you use to stay consistent is a tool you can now use to conquer any other field. Miyamoto Musashi died in a cave called Reigondo, clutching his sword and his writings. He died with nothing, yet he had everything because he conquered the only enemy that actually matters: himself. He reminds us that discipline is not a punishment. It is not a boring life of rules. It is a shield. It is the only thing that stands between you and the chaotic, impulsive version of yourself that wants to settle for mediocrity. In a world that wants you to be distracted, jealous, and soft, being disciplined is an act of rebellion. It is the highest form of self-love. You are not a victim of your circumstances, your past, or your location. You are the architect of your own undefeated spirit. As Musashi wrote in his final days, there is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. Your sword is your mind. Your duel is today. How will you move? Before you go, if this video resonated with you, a like or subscribe is always appreciated. I look forward to reading your comments and seeing you in the next one.